Tom Clark's 6M podcast is a Boink Studios production. And now, on with the show.
Hey, what is up? Welcome to Tom Clark's 6M podcast. I'm your host, Tom Clark. And in this episode, I'm joined by co-hosts Phil Lindsey and Ray Dean. The chickens have come home to roost in this episode of the 6M podcast. What am I talking about? Well, this is the continuation, because we're doing the whole trilogy of Creed movies here. And in this movie, past sins are revisited. Maybe you could make a correlation between sins of the father onto the son. We got a lot of different metaphors here, kids. But as you know, as you can see by the thumbnail, yes, we're covering Creed 2 here today. And past demons have come back to light of day. And we're talking stuff that happened in Rocky 4. A lot of connective tissue here, kids, which is very cool. If you're a fan of this universe, if you're a fan of the Rocky verse, well, then you should be a fan of these films. And if you're not, I question your sanity at this point, because they're great films. And I can't wait to get into it here today. But yeah, a lot of connective tissue. When we talked about the first one, we said how it paid respects to the original Rocky franchise. I think this one does that and goes a step further. But we'll get into that here today. And we've got a lot to get into because, as we said, chickens have indeed come home to roost. Because there's a pretty important guy that's in this movie that we haven't seen since Rocky 4, at least not in this universe. But we'll get there. But first, let's do this. Creed 2 is a 2018 American sports drama film directed by Stephen Caple Jr. from a screenplay by Jewel Taylor and Sylvester Stallone. It is the sequel to 2015's Creed, a follow-up to Rocky 4, and the 8th installment in the Rocky franchise. It stars Michael B. Jordan, Stallone, Tessa Thompson, and a variety of other folks here that round out this cast, and again, one in very particular who we'll get to. In this film, under the continued tutelage of Rocky Balboa, Adonis Creed faces off against Viktor Drago, the son of Ivan Drago, who became responsible for the death of Adonis's father, Apollo Creed, 33 years earlier. This film, as we said, released in 2018, actually in the United States on November 21st. Total running time is 130 minutes. The budget for this movie, this is good. The budget for this movie is $50 million. The box office, kids, is $214.1 million. And that is your lowdown on Creed 2. So, Ray, let's kick it off with you this time. Thoughts about Creed 2 going into this show today? How do you think this measures up to the first one?
In my opinion, I thought the first one had a little more oomph to it. I thought the second one kind of deviated into the Rocky story a little bit, and it kind of took away some of the shine from Adonis Creed and the Creed story. But towards the middle and towards the end, it kind of, like I said, built its own identity for Creed. So I did like that part of it. But that beginning part towards the middle, I felt like it was almost like a Rocky 4.5.
Interesting. Phil, what do you think, man? Does this veer too far away from the main character and we're getting too much into Rocky's mythos? What's your take?
I think it was just too much going on sometimes in this movie. I think that the plot got a bit convoluted at times. I think it's still a good movie. Having retrospective and now having seen all three movies, I do think it's the weakest of the three. I think that the first one is so good because it's so hopeful and it has such a great message. And this one also has a great message, but it tries to be the empire of this trilogy in a lot of ways because it's dark and it has like these dark tones to it. But I just kind of wish that it was a bit more focused at times.
Mm-hmm. I don't really have an agenda or an answer here. I'm just throwing it out here to you guys. did this movie have to happen in terms of, Ivan Drago? I mean, on one hand, it makes a lot of sense because it's a storyline that I guess has not been finished. And if you're going to have the son of Apollo in his own set of movies, he probably needs to confront this at some point. But I mean, could we have lived without Drago and his son? Like, Phil, what do you think about that? I mean, was it cool that we had it? It just could have been done better. What's your take?
I'm glad that we got the first movie first
Mhm.
because I do think people wanted to see how Adonis will react to being in the same room or being anywhere near Drago, let alone Drago and his son being the main villain of this movie. So I do think it was inevitable, but I'm glad that we got the first movie where it had no attachment to that, so that when we did get to the Drago confrontation, it felt more earned.
Mm. Yeah, good point. So Ray, along those same lines, if we were going to get this anyway, and as Phil said, we got the first Creed to sort of establish Adonis, establish his little corner of this Rocky verse, right? And now we're delving back into past history with his dad. I mean, did the Drago stuff have to happen here? And if so, how could it have been done, in your opinion?
In my opinion, I mean, at some point you had to bring him in, I guess, because obviously his father's, killed his father. So, there has to be some retribution there to that whole, you know, scene. So I guess you had to bring him in at some point. I'm glad they didn't bring him in the beginning. So, Adonis Creed had his own identity before this happened. But, to your point, you know, how could you leave him out completely?
Mm,
He had such a big component in the whole Rocky series, and he was such a huge character when it relates to Creed that, like I said, it was inevitable he was going to get brought in. I just felt like, maybe it took too much away from him and kind of focused his head again on Rocky.
mm. Yeah, I agree with both you guys. I'm glad that the decision was not made to have this be the first Creed film. I mean, I don't know, man. If this had been the first Creed film, we've gotten two other movies. I mean, part of me questions if this just would have been seen as a Rocky sequel, not a Creed movie.
I think it still would have done very well because, as you said, this movie still did very well
Hmm.
financially.
Hmm.
I don't know if it would have had the same emotional punch that this movie had if we didn't have a movie with Adonis beforehand.
Mm.
Yeah, Adonis
Yeah.
needed to put his stamp on things. He needed to establish himself as a legit character in the series,
Yeah,
rather than, like you said, this is kind of a spin-off of Rocky Drago.
yeah. I think that they did some great parallels between Adonis and Drago's son, though.
I thought that was well done. I gotta be honest with you. That side of the coin with Ivan and Victor, I was here for it. I was a big fan of Rocky Four, and
Hmm.
even the nonsense of, hey, all the Soviets are cheering for Rocky. This is a feel good moment, huh? Like, okay, sure, but
I could change. You could
yeah.
change.
Anybody could change.
Anybody could change.
Oh man. By the way, speaking of that, Ray, were you surprised that the Ivan Drago character wasn't at all like we never got a moment of, but without getting too wordy, what happened in the ring between me and Apollo was business, in other words. But man, he seemed to revel in the fact that he killed the guy. That kind of threw me a little bit. Like, how'd you respond to that when you first saw this move? Was that too much for you, or do you think that makes sense?
I mean, I just didn't think like he was going to come across that harsh. Like he
Yeah.
was almost like, it's part of the business that happens. Get over it.
Mhm.
Like he had this very nonchalant attitude towards it, which made him obviously you wanted him to be the villain, so you developed more hatred towards him. So I guess if that was your goal, you achieved it. But it just he was very harsh about it, and
I
it seemed
mean,
like the father was maybe I'm crazy. He seemed like a little bit remorse about it.
Maybe I don't know. I
I
don't
mean, I don't know
know.
if I go with remorse, but I could feel he was a little, he felt something. He wasn't like, oh, it happened, so oh well.
yeah. I mean,
especially when he came into the restaurant.
Mm.
yeah, I mean, I think that he regretted a lot of things. I don't know if I believe that he regrets killing Apollo. Because, I mean, this is a guy that famously said if he dies, he dies.
Oh, that's true.
Good point.
Oh, well, I was hoping for a kinder, gentler Ivan Drago, but hey.
We get a little bit of a Drago redemption arc here.
Mhm.
Kind of. Um, they do this great thing with both characters where I think one of the best things about the first movie is it's kind of got like this Greek mythology to it, which of course fits Apollo. It's named after a
Mhm.
Greek god. Adonis is named after a Greek god. But I love this idea that um, he kind of gets kicked out of the land of the gods in LA because he tries to go and train and they're just like, no, get out of here, kid. And he has to go down and go and train in Philadelphia and become more of an everyman. And I think there's this similar thing that happens here with Drago, where Drago had it all, man. He was treated like a god. He was worshipped in Russia until he lost. And when he lost, he didn't have anything. And so he's training his son to get back to where he was. It's like, no, I lost. And when I lost everything. I'm trying to give you your birthright. This all was supposed to be yours.
Mm. Yeah. Like take up the mantle and win where I couldn't win or didn't win, right? I like the dynamic and I was here for it, but because his wife left, like Brigitte Nielsen's like, I'm out. You
Yeah.
you lose, I'm out. And like hadn't seen her son, and you just, I think Victor at one point says, she ran out on us, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then like she even left in the end, dude. Like, yeah, but I thought what was cool, Phil, to your point, if there is a redemption here, it's between Ivan and his son in the end, which I thought was very cool.
Yeah. But yeah, just this idea that um everything that he thought that he was gonna get, what he lost, it was taken away from him. And I think, especially when he comes to Philadelphia and he realizes like there are statues for Rocky. Like there's that great scene of him standing there looking at the statue, and even when he goes to the
Mm.
restaurant, he sees like all of the pictures and like all of this like great celebration of his career. There is nothing like that for Drago. There is no celebration of Ivan Drago.
Yeah, they're living in Ukraine and living hand to mouth and have nothing.
Yeah. Um, which it's very telling that just his life, how he gets up, how he's training his son, it's very Rocky-ish. Like
Yeah,
he's
yeah.
he because in his mind he sees himself as the hero in his story. He's not the bad guy. Everything was taken from me because I lost to that guy. Like
Yeah.
I'm not the bad guy here. I was only doing what I was trained to do.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. If you see it from his, it's kind of like what is it? Zabka in the Karate Kid universe and Cobra Kai. Like we never got his side of it until the series. You're like, wait a minute, I kind of see why he's upset now. You know what I mean?
Used an illegal kick.
Yes, he's that illegal kick, man. Yeah. Well, you could argue that Speedball Mike Bailey does it better, but I'm just saying. But yeah. So look, again, big fan of Rocky 4 here, kids. And I do like that. I personally, I enjoy this film. I do. Do I think it's as strong as the other two? I do not. However, I was here for it, and I think it's a good movie. But do I think that we kind of lost some important points? Yeah. I mean, it kind of felt like Creed's kid wasn't the focal point that maybe it could have been. And, it kind of just felt like a plot device to me. Like, Ray, how did that strike you? Do you think we spent enough time on that, or do you think it was just kind of thrown in?
I feel like I said it was too much in the beginning, focused between Drago and Rocky
Mhm.
and their altercation and their meeting and their talking. And he's like, my life has changed ever since that fight. I'm nothing now. They treat me like garbage where I'm from, et cetera, et cetera. and it didn't, like I said, segue to Creed until like the middle, and obviously he's having the child and et cetera, but like it was nothing about him until the middle and latter part of the movie, and I felt like I said you didn't need to drill so much into the past of Rocky and Drago. Let's try to focus on Adonis. And like you, I feel like the third one and the first one were just better. Not to say the second one wasn't good. I just feel like I said those two just had a little more oomph to them.
Yeah, I mean, again, I can kind of see like, you've got Dolph Lundgren, who we've not mentioned the cast here, kids, but we all know who Drago is. I mean, you got Dolph Lundgren, who just has never been in bad shape and who is just freaking awesome. So,
Mhm.
like, if you can get that guy, you get that guy. If you can cast his son, you cast his son, and you make it happen. So, I'm okay with all of that. But look, again, if this had to happen, maybe it could have been done better. Guys, what do we think about Lundgren here? I mean, his performance. Phil, what do you think about him back as Drago?
I thought he did some great acting here. I think that, of course, he showed more depth than he showed in Rocky Four because that's not really his purpose in Rocky Four. There's a bit more pathos and there's more depth to his character this time around, and I think that he plays it very well. None of my issue is with Drago and Drago's son being the villain of this movie. I think all of that is fine. I just, like I said, wish that the movie was a bit more focused because it takes so many diverges into this direction or that direction, and all of it doesn't really hit. Uh, Stallone also tries to do the same narrative structure that he did with Rocky 3, where he loses the first fight to get to the next fight because he didn't train properly for the
Mhm.
first fight. And then when he takes it more seriously, the second time we get the actual fight. And I don't think that it works as well here. I think that there should have been one fight with Drago. The fact that they had to do this DQ finish thing to get to the second fight, I don't think that it worked as well. And I get you're supposed to, they're trying to establish that Drago's son is this big of a threat in the first fight, but I just don't know that it worked that well.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, that's yeah. I and look, I'm with you. I think Lundgren did really well here, and I think that we've seen. I was gonna say we've seen range. I think Lundgren typically just plays the tough guy action hero all the time, and that's
Mhm.
fine. But like, I do think he did very well here. But yeah, it's again, like some of this is kind of mired down, and we have to tell this history. We got to tell this story. I don't know. I don't know. I mean, what better way? I think I've already asked this. I don't think any of us really have an answer. What better way could this have happened if this was going to be the case? If this was going to be something they insisted on doing, what else? How else could they have managed this? Maybe there's not a good answer, guys. Like Phil pointed out earlier, this thing made a ton of money. So
Yeah.
who am I to sit here and say it was done wrong? Doesn't make a lot of sense.
Yeah, I mean, look, I do think that they did quite a few things very well here, despite, like I said, the fact that I wish that it wasn't as convoluted. I think setting up all of the stuff from the first movie, I love that his fight for the championship was against the same guy that beat him in the first movie. I thought that that was a great touch, and to finally get him to the spot where he beat him and he won the car back.
Yeah, he did win the car back. I was glad to see that.
And like when he wins, he yells, "Get my keys!"
Yeah.
Great stuff. Um, I love that you had the promoter that was behind this whole thing. He
Hmm.
You get the scene at the beginning where he's watching Drago fight, and then he's watching Creed win the championship, and he's just like, "It don't mean anything. It doesn't have a story. Everybody wants a story,"
Yeah.
and that all hits because that's what sports is now.
It's
And
true.
that's how sports is covered now. It doesn't matter how good you are. It doesn't how matter how big the win is. People want a story. People love a story.
Yeah.
And for Drago and Creed, their stories are always going to be connected. And
Hmm.
so I
It's
thought
true.
that that was a great way to get to the fight and to bring the Dragos to America. Um, all that stuff I think was executed very well. I also love that um, initially all of the people in Creed's life kind of saw this as an inevitability. Like his mother isn't trying to stop him from taking the fight. She knew he was going to take the fight.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, that's a good point. Yeah, she already knew. Yeah.
Like nobody. I don't even think the only person that's really trying to stop him from taking the fight is Rocky, but his connection to it is different because he still feels guilt, and I think all of that stuff was played very well. The conversation that he has with Rocky when he tells him he's going to take the fight, the dialogue in that is very, very good.
Mm-hmm.
When he tells him, he's like, "Yeah," he's like, I'm going to take the fight," and he's like, "Man, listen, you don't have to do this." He was like, "That guy broke things in me that still haven't been fixed. Like, you
Yeah.
can't fight
Yeah.
this guy, and it's just not worth it." And he's trying to tell him, like, "What do you think I can't win?" And he doesn't really give him an answer. I love that part of it as well because it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if he can win or not. He's in his mind, he's just like, it's just not worth it to you. But I don't think that he understands at that point in the story what this means to him.
Mm-hmm.
It isn't just about him trying to get what he got in the first movie or prove that he belongs. Now this is different. This guy, his legacy is attached to this guy. If he doesn't beat this guy, it's always going to be this big question mark.
Dude, you're totally right. And Ray, not for nothing, but Creed, Adonis Creed, is still a young hothead. He still lets his emotions make his decisions because he's not a veteran fighter yet. He's not Rocky. He's not. That's why he's got Rocky in his corner to help him make good decisions because he's not there yet.
100%. And when he was having the conversation with Rocky, he was telling him, you don't want to do this. Like I said, it just broke me. And then when he was asking him, you keep talking about his amateur record and how he was so good in the amateurs. You don't think I could beat him? I didn't say that. But you keep talking about how this guy's hungry and you're making me think I can't beat him. And he never answered him, like you said. So it put more doubt in him, and he's hot-headed, and he's looking to get revenge for his father. And I felt like it was the perfect tool. I think if you wanted to change the movie, if you had Drago living in the Ukraine in like a little house or a hut, just barely surviving, and the son is like, look what you did to my father. My father's a shell of himself now. He's living hand to mouth. I'm going to revenge my father for what you did to him type of situation. That could have been the only twist I think you could have made to this movie.
Interesting. Yeah, that might would have worked. Yeah, because guys, Ivan's driving the bus. His kid's not driving at all. His kid's just going along because he wants to make his dad happy. I think we can all kind of see that, right?
Yeah, if you let the son drive the bus, it would change the whole narrative of the movie. But
That's true.
Yeah, it could have worked. It could have worked.
It could have worked. Yeah, sure. Wow.
But I think part of what works here and what Rocky sees initially is he's saying, nah, the difference between you and him is you were brought up in privilege. You were brought up in a good situation. You were brought up around love. This guy was brought up in a house built on hate, revenge, like resentment, like that kind of thing. You can't fight that reasonably. You can't just go in and prepare for a fight with somebody that has been preparing to tear down everything that you mean to the world. And I think Rocky understood that initially. Like, you're going in there with a fight with a guy that he don't just want to beat you. He wants to make a point.
Yeah, it's true. And Ivan's son here, kids, played by Florine Mutianu, who is also Razor Fist in
Yes.
Shang-Chi. It's great.
Boink Studios is the home of Tom Clark's Main Event, Tom Clark's 6M podcast, and Two Nations Under Ted, a Ted Lasso podcast. Visit the site today for links to every podcast platform, social media, special announcements, and a lot more. Check out the site and bookmark today, boinkstudios.com.
By the way, he is pro wrestling jacked in this movie. Did you see the guy's arms? God in heaven. Are you kidding?
Oh my God, dude. He's like look like a young Goldberg.
He's a tank.
I don't know how they filmed this so that Apollo is smaller at the beginning of the movie and he makes the transformation and gets bigger for the second fight. But the distance between these guys in that first movie is so pronounced. And it worked so well because we even get the great line when Drago sees him. He's like, "You're smaller than your dad."
Yeah.
And man, his son is enormous. So when they're first face to face, I'm like, oh, he can't beat this guy. This guy is like this guy is like a monster. You not gonna beat this guy. And it's not just the size difference when you see how he's beating those people in those fights. That's why again, thematically it's so close to Rocky 3 because those first few fights when you see Clubber fighting these people
Mm.
and you see how Mick is watching this guy beat those people, he's like, oh no, oh no, I
Yeah.
can't send Rocky in there to fight him. Which again is such a great callback when you get to the conversation between him and Adonis because he's like, you think I can't beat him? It's the same conversation between him and Mick where Mick is telling him you can't fight that guy. Because Mick saw the same thing in this guy that Rocky sees in Drago's son. This guy is just fueled by hate. You can't beat that guy.
Yeah, you can't do anything about that. Yeah, he's a tank.
Mick
It's
was like, "This guy's a killer. You haven't faced a killer like this since you won that belt."
Exactly. And I think it's the same thing with Adonis. He's fighting a bunch of guys that are boxers that are, training for greatness. This guy's not just training for that. That guy's training for revenge.
Yeah. Yeah. I thought he was great here, by the way. I can't say, oh, what a great actor, because there wasn't a lot of acting going on, right? But he
Yeah.
looked the part. I thought he was great, man.
Yeah, I thought he was phenomenal. I thought that he looked the part, like you said. I said this guy looked like this undefeatable monster, and I think in the scenes where he was asked to act, he did very well.
Mm.
The scene where, very well executed, where we see Bridget Nielsen for the first time, and he's sitting there getting upset, and he walks out, and he's just like, "Why are we here? Like they left you, they abandoned you.
Yeah.
Why like?" We shouldn't be here. And I thought he played that very well. The whole time they're speaking Russian, just great scene.
Great scene. Yeah. Fantastic. He just looks, I mean, it's the old pro wrestling adage. Like you got to bring something to the table. You can't like I got small arms. Okay. I go to the gym 3 days a week. It's not, I work the arms, but nothing's happening. Right. But like, you got to look the part. I couldn't step up to anybody that's, 270 and pure muscle. I mean, even in a phony pro wrestling setting, like it's not, who's going to buy that? Like you gotta step up, and buddy, to face the heavyweight champion of the world, like this guy is in phenomenal shape. And, it's he's a believable contender, even though this movie's not real. If that makes sense.
Yeah. This
Crazy. Yeah. Ray, in terms of, and he doesn't really look like Drago in terms of like the hair and everything, but it's fine. It's not a big deal. But like the dynamic between him and his dad, what kind of correlations, Ray, do you see there between Rocky and Adonis? Of course, it's two very different relationships, but I found it interesting how they kind of played out. They kind of went side by side throughout this whole movie.
Yeah, I mean, the way Rocky trains, he got, Adonis to finally train the right way. And, he had to like go to Philly and like go back to like the beginning almost. Cause the son, the Drago's son is like basically just grimy, and he's going to war in there training like he's an animal. He's not high tech like his father was in the Rocky 4. He was more like training like, getting down, breaking boards and breaking rocks and just nuts.
Yeah, I mean it is night and day. The father son thing is really playing out here, and there's always going to be a hole there because Apollo's not there, and Rocky's having to fill that void. Rocky's here again, kids. I mean, we've already mentioned Stallone. We know he's a part of this. Of course he is. I mean, Stallone nobody can play Rocky but Stallone, and all the times we've had conversations about should someone be a new Black Panther? Should there be a new Iron Man? Blah, blah, blah. Could there be another Indiana Jones? Who's going to be the next James Bond? I don't think there's ever going to be another Rocky. I don't. Now there doesn't have to be, even if he wanted to do that, because now you have Adonis and you could just keep moving forward. But man, he is so good. Stallone knows what his pocket is for every character he plays, and he gets in that pocket and he stays there, and he's so good. Like when Ivan came to your restaurant and you were cool and you were chill, and he made the comment about, what we do to strays around here, which I thought was nice, but you can't rattle him. The best have tried to rattle him, and it's not working. He's not 20 years old anymore. But man, I was very glad to see him here. I'm glad he's in the trilogy. I'm very glad he is. But like the fact that he's taking like sort of riding like shotgun to Jordan, I think is great. But I think his presence would have been missed here, guys, if he wasn't in this movie.
Absolutely. Like you had to have him in the movie, to obviously guide Adonis and ultimately have him, train the right way and, lead him to fight this guy. But yeah, without Rocky, you don't have that dynamic between Ivan, the son. There would be a big gap that would be missing from it. So you obviously had to have Rocky in there.
Yeah, for sure.
The only issue I had with Rocky in this movie is they don't give us a real explanation of why he and his son are not talking.
That's true. Yeah.
It's never really explained.
Because at the end of Rocky 5, weren't they on good terms again?
I thought so. So I don't know. They don't really give you a good answer of why they're not speaking, and it's kind of treated as if it's inconsequential, which I don't think is really great. But they spend so much time going back to it, and they even give us they wrap a bow on it and they give us a conclusion to it, but it's never really explained well. I don't know. But I thought that Stallone was good here overall. I thought he did some great acting here. I thought that Rocky fit perfectly in this role. Him filling the role of Mick in this movie for Adonis, of being like, "Now you can't fight this guy. Like you don't get it. You're champion, and you got to understand what it means to be champion. I've been here. I've been champion. I understand." Um, I thought all of that was played very well. Like I said, the dialogue between him and Apollo was great. Even when Adonis loses and he comes to the hospital and he's like, "Wait, what are you here to pick up the pieces?" And um, that is just so well done. And he doesn't know how to answer. He doesn't know how to be there for him, not just because of his guilt for what happened to Apollo, but he doesn't know how to be this father figure for him because his own son isn't talking to him. I don't even know how to handle what's happening between me and my sons. I can't handle this either.
Yeah, it's a good call. Yeah. Again, a lot of different, sort of dynamics playing out here, but a lot of them very similar too.
Yeah.
That, I mean, and also Phil, the fact that, he is, you can kind of sense, all right, I call you Unc. I consider you family. Sly considers him, or, Rocky considers him family at this point. But like, I got to be my own man. So like, when you challenge me on that, I'm going to push back. Like, Adonis still very much has that in him. Instead of, like I said earlier, he's not quite a veteran yet. So they're always going to maybe headbutt to some degree, right?
Yeah, I think that they handled that dynamic between them very well. But I think there's also just this unspoken thing between him and Rocky, where Rocky is just like, I can't be what you need me to be. You need your dad, and it's my fault that your dad is not here.
Yeah. And by the way, I'm watching it again as we speak, and we'll go ahead and mention Tessa Thompson is back as Bianca. She's freaking great here in this movie, as she was in the first one. You guys caught that she's wearing a beret similar to Adrian in the first fight with Drago, right?
Yeah, I thought that was a little too on the nose that she
Yeah, a
came
little
in
bit.
dressed.
I
She
liked it,
came
but
in
I
dressed like Adrian in the second movie.
Yeah, that felt a little. It's kind of like if you're going to do that, why not just wait till the end? I don't know, to the second fight. I found that interesting. Her condition. She mentions at one time in the movie, kids, that maybe it's hereditary, and that we're talking about her loss of hearing. Well, it turns out it is, because the baby evidently is born deaf, as we learn here. And man, I was putting over Stallone like crazy when he talks to Adonis in the hallway, and Adonis like, it's going to be all right. He's like, okay, but what if it isn't all right? Like, kudos and hats off to the writers here, man, because I thought his dialogue in that hallway was freaking great.
Yeah, yeah, I thought it was great as well. But again, that's why I mean, like, it just felt like there's so much going on. Like, you have like he's got a kid on the way. His kid has hearing loss, and then it's just like that's added on to the conflict. There's just so much going on at once.
Yeah, too much maybe. Ray, too much going on, you think?
Yeah, I mean, between, like I said, the pregnancy, the mother, kind of like giving the blessing, but you could tell she was a little upset. The Rocky, you need to fight angle where he's kind of protecting because he obviously let his father die. Yeah, it's just a little too much, a little too much. And I don't know what happened to the son either. Like, he was in the last Rocky trilogy, and he was helping Rocky train. I thought they were on good terms. I don't know what happened either.
Yeah,
Yeah, we saw him at the end, kids. Mila Ventimiglia. And for anybody that's still a fan of that first season of Heroes, we see you because we are too. Now, the rest of it, hot garbage, but that first season, freaking great. So I'm just saying, I had to throw that out there. But yeah, there's a lot going on here, whole lot going on. Also, we mentioned at the beginning of this show, there's a different director here, kids. This is Stephen Cable Jr. And I got to be honest with you guys. How do you hand Stephen Cable Jr. this movie when he had one credit on his resume, and that was a movie called The Land that he directed in 2016? He had one credit, and that's it. And you gave him Creed 2. Like, that's astonishing to me, guys. I don't even know what to say about that.
yeah. I think that's part of what was missing from this movie as well. It didn't have some of Coogler's panache to it.
Yeah.
Um, and again, I don't think this is a bad movie, but I think that Coogler's absence was noticeable here.
Yeah.
I think Coogler was a producer on it, but it definitely was missing some of his style choices that made the first one so good.
Yeah, Kugel had a different dynamic that I think would have just made the movie flow a little better, in my opinion.
Yeah.
You definitely could tell the difference.
Well, it's kind of like Abrams coming back to Star Wars for the third movie, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we had that part 2, and you're like, what's happening here? you know? But then,
Yeah.
like, everything kind of gets brought back home by the third one, I think.
Yeah,
For better or worse.
you could definitely see the differences in Stallone's writing style and Coogler's writing style as well.
Yeah. Yeah, the screenplay by Jill Taylor and Stallone, as we mentioned. The stories by Sasha Penn and Cheo Coker, which is cool. But yeah, because as we know, kids, he was on Luke Cage, which is in the archives. Kids, you should go listen because it's fun. So yeah, I don't know, like how much of the business. This is impossible to say. I mean, I imagine some of this $214 million was the excitement of, hey, there's a Creed 2, and hey, there's Rocky 4 callbacks, and I like Dolph Lundgren, and let's go see this movie. That's got to be a lot of this, right?
100%. I mean, there's just some name brands, and if you didn't know the Creed story, you knew the Rocky story.
Yeah.
So it's a chance to see Drago. So yeah, you got both genres there.
Yeah. I think it's the same dynamic that worked for the Nolan films where he came in and he made a good origin film, but the second people see Joker in the second movie, oh, I'm going to see it because I recognize Joker. And it's the same thing here. I recognize Drago, so I'm going to see it.
Yeah, good point. Yeah, good point. For sure. Well, we did mention Tessa Thompson. She's great here. Her character, did we get enough character evolution, Phil, with Bianca in this movie, you think?
I think so because I think the great thing about this movie is we see that he doesn't make some of the same mistakes that Apollo made.
Mm.
And I think part of that is him having the support system around him to steer him in the right direction.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of the stuff that I came to appreciate about this movie is just how much everybody around Adonis lifted him up and made sure that he didn't make the same mistakes. Like there's just small things like his mother sending Rocky the picture of the sonogram and with the note on the back that says he still needs you.
Yeah, it's really good. I was here for that. Yeah. She I love Tessa Thompson. She's freaking wonderful. And Felicia Rashad is back here. Kids, as we know, is Marianne Creed.
Yes.
Paula's widow, still strong. She's a rock, can't move her. Nothing surprises her. She's seen everything as the wife of a championship boxer. So she's
Yeah.
great here as well. We got to mention Russell Hornsby as Buddy Marcel. I got to tell you, man, I think you could have played this way too hard, and it's a ripoff of Don King. But I also kind of think maybe we didn't get enough of him. Am I the only one that feels like that?
I felt in my opinion, it was very hokey. He was very Don Kingish.
Mm.
He just tried too hard, like to come across like that, almost like in the Rocky Five with the other promoter. That same vibe, that same energy. I mean, he's a good actor. He's done some great movies, but I just felt in this role, it was just like I said, he came across just a little too, promoter Don King hokey style. And it's like, I mean, I've seen that one before. I've seen that character in Rocky Five.
It is, yeah, I get you. And it is interesting that they went back to that after they've already done it. And it was a blatant, flat out Don King thing that they did. I don't know, man. Maybe I'm of a different opinion. Maybe I just feel like I don't know if maybe he's too one dimensional. Is that what the problem was? Maybe.
I think so. But I don't think that he was as over the top as Duke was in 5. I thought he was fine, and I think he added a good reasoning to get to the Drago fight. But I, but again, I think that part of losing him in the script is because there was so much going on. But yeah, I
Yeah,
agree.
that's true.
I think that Bianca was great here. I think that Bianca stayed in his corner no matter what. And I think that she did a great job of like every time he would try and distance himself from his support system, she was always asking questions like, "What's going on with him? Like, how can I be a good wife? How can I be a good partner? All of those things." Um, and I think their relationship shined throughout this movie. I think that was one of the highlights of the first movie. And I think it's a highlight here too. Um, like when she finds out they're pregnant, which the scene where she finds out she's pregnant is so great because Marianne's just like, "Oh, I already know what the news is," and she's just like, "What do you mean?"
Your hair's shiny. You're taking
Yeah.
in the salt. Yeah, that was incredible.
And she's just like, "Okay." Then they rush and take the test, and of course they find out that she's right, which is it's just such this great dynamic between him as a young character and all of these characters around him that have been here and done that, and they're trying to tell him like, "Nah, that ain't how this gonna go." And he's just like, "Nah, I got it figured out." And at every turn, they're like, "Nope, nope, nope, you don't." um, and so I love that scene of how they find out she's pregnant, and then they're sitting on the floor in the bathroom, and she's like, "I don't know if I'm ready." And he gives the great line of, "Well, we better get ready."
Yeah.
And he's
Yeah.
like, "What does one line mean? What does two lines mean?" Like
Oh,
he's
that's
just
good.
he's just shell shocked. He's like, "Oh my god!" he's like, "What does this mean? What is one line? Is it two lines?" And he's so
Yeah.
nervous. It's dark. But Felicia Rashad, oh my god, she crushed it.
Fantastic.
Yeah. Um, I also just love just the small things like him. He could very easily because he's so brash and he's so hot headed with everything else, but he's so different with Bianca on every level. Like he's supportive, he's like empathetic, all of these things that he's not with everybody else. And so I love that her being worried and not knowing like what's going to happen with her pregnancy, he immediately jumps into support mode. And I
Good
also
point.
love that he as a kind of a well, not even kind of an orphan. He basically is an orphan because his mother his mother's not there, and then his dad is dead. So I love that he immediately is just like not even questioning being a parent. He just already knows that something he wants to do.
Yeah. Yeah. And, I don't think there's a scenario in which he doesn't fight Victor. I don't think it's
No.
possible. Like he feels the responsibility of this man killed my dad. I can't let this slide. I can't, now his son's stepping up. I can't just let this go.
Tom Clark's 6M podcast is sponsored in part by Radius Law Group. Every day, Radius helps individuals, families, small businesses, and nonprofit organizations throughout North Carolina, Florida, and Pennsylvania resolve their legal issues by providing effective legal counsel in the areas of estate planning, as well as elder law and Medicaid. Radius Law holds the radical belief that working with a lawyer can indeed be enjoyable. So give them a call at 1-800-519-5667 for more information and tell them that Tom Clark's 6M podcast sent you.
I can't say I'm disagreeing with him, guys. I kind of feel like he had to take the fight.
Yes, I just
100%
think that
had to.
I just think that he took the first fight for the wrong reasons,
That's
and
fair.
he quickly figured that out. But I don't think he was wrong to want to take the fight. I just think that going into the fight, he went into it already assuming everybody in his life was going to be against him. And when he
Yeah.
did that, he pushed people away. Like he kind of pushed Rocky out of the picture by just telling him like, I'm going to take the fight. I don't even think he really tried to explain to him why he needed the fight.
Yeah.
He was just so prepared for everybody to tell him no that if anybody told him no, he was like, well, I'm doing it. I'm doing it anyway.
Yeah. Well, Stallone, or I keep on calling him Stallone, Rocky keeps putting him on the spot. He did it a couple different times. Like, why do you want to fight? And every time Adonis tries him, say, no. Yeah. But why do you want to do it? Why do you feel the need to do it?
Yeah. Which again, Rocky 3 narrative, he won't just admit he was scared.
Exactly. That's a good point.
But yeah, he's got great scenes with everybody before that first fight. I mean, when he goes in and tells Marianne he's gonna fight him, and she's just like, I know, and then he like tries to explain, and she gives the great line, "Do not make this about your father."
Yeah. Yeah, because your dad would say, "I would rather you not get killed, son." you know, I don't want you to take the fight, son. Like, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, but that's why, like I said, this movie does a bunch of things very well. Even though I don't really like the the plot device of having him fight the first time and lose. I think the first fight is really filmed very well. Um, that rib shot he takes is just like, oh my god, don't
Mm.
fight anymore. Just get out of the ring. It's enough.
Yeah, that's enough. Yeah.
Where's the
And
towel? Get the towel.
throw the towel in for this guy. Enough. I think all of that stuff is played well, and I just think the way that the fights are handled is done really well. But also love him losing that first fight, and then he goes through all of these sequences where everybody's like, all right, well, we're training for the next fight. Like he has this scene where he pulls up to the gym and Duke's like, all right, well, come on in. And then he drives off.
Yeah.
Because again, he just won't just admit he's afraid, but they do such great things with that stuff. Like the filming for some of the training montages was great. Like him in the pool or like him in the desert training, all of that stuff is filmed very well.
Yeah. Little Duke, this is Tony Evers, played by Wood Harris. He's here. This is the guy we mentioned in the first episode of our review of Creed 1, kids. We do know that, as we said earlier, that Adonis got his car back.
Mm-hmm.
The Mustang's back in the garage, and Andre Ward as Danny's stuntman Wheeler. That character was grieving over that car for 3 years.
Man, but when he comes in and talks to Duke Jr. and he's convincing him to train him for the fight, and he's telling them like, "This isn't just about me. Your dad isn't here either." He was like, "We could change it. We could rewrite history."
That
Great
cheap
scene as well.
Was that cheap? It kind of felt like a bait, like I'm baiting the hook, so you'll do this.
Yeah. I think it was to a degree, but I think he spelled out all the reasons why Adonis should want that fight.
Mm.
But I still think he fought for the wrong reasons the first time.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Yeah, and it's, Ray. I know you're a big fan of the original franchise. I mean, I'm sure we all are. Well, maybe not every film, but this kind of has followed a similar pattern where the underdog, he doesn't win the first fight, but then by the second movie he's on his way up and he wins. He beats Apollo. I mean, it's not quite the same trajectory here, but like we're kind of mirroring it to some degree. So we kind of expected this one to be he's on the way up. Then what's going to happen in the third one? Is he going to lose? Like, I don't know. Is there too much of that, Ray, do you think? Or do you think it's just the right balance?
I think with the second one, it almost gave that same presence of like Rocky 3, where, he's made it, he's the champ, he's living a great life, he's got money, and he hasn't really trained hard. And like the Rocky 3, where he's fighting just regular boxers, he's not fighting a killer like Mr. T. And with Adonis, he's not fighting a killer like Drago. So there were some similarities in that way, but he kind of deviated to his own personality when he was training the second time after he lost, where he's in the desert and he's really, going at it. I thought that part was kind of, unique in that sense.
I like the training montage, like Phil said.
The angles were fantastic.
They're great. Yeah. Eye of the Tiger. It's 2 movies in. No one said Eye of the Tiger yet. What are we doing with this franchise, guys? Gotta get the Eye of the Tiger, man.
Yeah, I don't. Just some of the imagery they used as well. Like I said, him in that pool, and the scene where he's shouting to himself in the pool, and even like the stuff with him in the desert, and he's like he's running, and then he's like laid down for a minute, and he had to figure out what he was fighting for again, and they cut in like the montage of him FaceTiming with Bianca and his kid, and that's when he jumped back up and started running. All very well done.
Yeah, good point. Yeah. And you know what? I loved the decision of in the first fight, Drago's DQ'd. I did not want that character to win the championship his first fight out. I thought that would have been too formulaic. Like,
Yeah.
Adonis was on one knee, you hit him, that's an automatic DQ. On no planet are you going to win that fight at that point. But like the second fight, and I know why it happened in Russia. I get it. Number one, that's what the story said. Number two, we got to mirror Rocky 4. Okay. But like, I don't know. If you're Drago and you're demanding a second fight, I think Adonis kind of could, well, cool, but I'm not going to Russia for that. I shouldn't have to. You want the championship so bad, come get it. But like, I don't know. I guess it made sense they went over there. But in the real world, Adonis Creed ain't going to Russia.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they're also following the plot point that Drago is trying to get back everything that was taken from him.
Yeah.
So he thinks his son's going to win, and his crowning moment is going to be in Russia, like it was supposed to be when he lost to Rocky.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, but yeah, in real life, the champ dictates everything.
I mean, I would think so.
Yeah, he didn't lose. He kept the belt. I'm glad they didn't take the belt. I agree with you 100%. I'm glad that they didn't just get dominated like Mr. T destroyed Rocky.
Yeah.
And took the belt. So
I did kind of like that he showed up as soon as he won the championship, because it put Adonis in a spot where he felt like, okay, I have this now, and this belt doesn't feel like it means anything because I didn't beat him.
Yeah, because there's one part where he actually says, I'm heavyweight champ, but I don't feel it. I don't feel like it or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really good. They're, look, again, we've each individually got our, I won't say issues, but we've got our points about, was this a little bit too much Rocky 4 Part 2? Yeah, but man, having said that, I do enjoy this movie. Like, I can't lie. Yeah, there's a lot going on. Was there too much? Yeah, probably so. Did we even need Rocky's son in this? Probably not. But again, guys, I kind of felt like we were doing that father-son from the very beginning of this movie. and they felt the need to just keep tying back to that, which that's fine. Stallone's a good writer. He knows what he's doing. He's a great writer. He knows what he's
Yeah.
doing. But like at any given time, it did feel like a lot of heavy lifting, you know?
Yeah, I think that they did several things very well here, thematically though. Like I said, I really enjoyed the parallels between Adonis and Drago. I love that Drago shows up for this fight and he is trying to prove himself. And in the end, everything he's fighting for, he has the one thing that Adonis doesn't have. He had his dad.
Yeah.
And that's really what Drago figures out at the end when he throws the towel in for him. Like, it doesn't matter. You don't have all of these things, but at the end, I'm still here in your corner.
Yeah.
And Adonis don't have that. He has all of the things that he thinks he needs to validate himself: the championship, the money, all the rest of this stuff. But he don't have his dad.
It's true. Yeah.
I also love that they saved the scene of Adonis going to Creed's tombstone until the end of this movie. They didn't use it at the end of the first movie. Because he doesn't show up with the belt. He doesn't show up to show I did it. I won the belt. He shows up with his kid to say, "I want you to meet my kid. I'm a dad." And that made me tear up because I was like, it was the one thing that Apollo had done all of that. He had won. He was champion.
Mhm.
But he was like, this means something to me. This is why I wanted to fight the second time, and this is why I knew I had to win. Not I had to win to be champion. I had to win to come home and be a dad.
That's a character that's doing things for the right reasons when he's out there.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a guy that's learned. Like, and he's going to continue to make poor decisions because, again, he's a young guy and he's going to continue to be brash and do what he wants to do. But things have changed now that he has a family. Let me ask you guys this. Taking your baby girl to the boxing gym. Okay. Talk about being a little too on the nose. Oh, wait a minute. She stopped crying. She's a fighter like her dad. What are we doing? Was that too much?
Yeah, the whole she wouldn't stop crying until he started punching the bag thing, that was a little bit too much.
Yeah, that's just a drop too much. Like, she's having a fit and she's not stopping until he starts hitting the bag.
So, Phil, I'll tell you about something that you may never have heard of, but maybe you have. I don't know. Ray's heard it. Purple crying. Ray, you know purple crying, I assume.
Yeah, of course.
So, purple crying is this phenomenon where babies cry for no reason. I know that sounds simple, but their nurse will tell you before that baby goes home with you, look, your baby's going to cry, not hungry, diapers change, and they've slept. But sometimes they just cry. Best thing you could do is leave them in the crib, take a break, take a breath, don't be upset. You're not doing anything wrong. But, buddy, it's hard. When they're screaming for no good reason, and you're like, what is wrong with my child? So, like, would I take my baby son to a boxing gym? You know what? If I could go back in time, maybe I'd have tried anything. Maybe I would have. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. I thought that was kind of hokey as well, but
Yeah.
it was the way to get him back in the gym and to get him back on the training wheels. But yeah, I don't know.
If I thought that really worked, give me the gloves now.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like, Daddy, I need you to go beat this man in the face. It makes me happy. I got some bloodlust like everybody in this movie does. So,
Yeah.
you know.
But I mean, I also love that he knew he had to take the fight a second time.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it wasn't like, oh, I have to take the fight because I'm afraid of this guy. I have to take this fight because, you know, I already figured out what I'm fighting for in the first movie. I love this. I'm a fighter. This is who I am. And he had the great line of, you know, if you don't do what you love, then why are you here? Like, why? Like, this is what I do. I'm a fighter. And I cannot be a fighter until I beat this guy. I can't call myself any kind of fighter if I run away from this fight.
Yeah, and I think that's true. I think that's true. You know, at the time, I remember the buzz on this movie when it came out, and everybody's like, "Oh, you know, for a part 3, it should be Clubber Lang's son." And believe it or not, Deontay Wilder, there was rumors going around that he could play Clubber Lang's son in Creed 3. Both Stallone and Michael B. Jordan expressed interest in such a character being featured in the plot of Part 3. Now, we'll get there, kids. We're going to review Part 3. It'll follow this one in the release order. But again, are we going too on the nose, guys? Well, whose son can we put in here now? What about when his daughter grows up? Well, then wait a minute. Did Clubber have a daughter? Well, guess what? He's got a granddaughter. And then we're just I don't know. When's enough is what I'm asking here.
Yeah. I understand why you would do Drago, because Drago is very integral to his story.
Sure.
Clubber is not as integral. I also understand the big what if from the Rocky franchise is that Apollo never fought Clubber.
Good call. Yeah. He never fought him. Yeah. And you know what? And again, this is out without me going back and binging the original franchise, because I'm sure Ali was mentioned. I'm sure of it. But he's not mentioned by name in the first Creed or this one. But, the promoter mentions Rumble in the Jungle, which I found very interesting, because we've kind of agreed that Apollo was the Ali of this universe, but maybe he's not. Maybe he was the successor to Ali, perhaps.
Supposedly, but I mean, at several points, they call Apollo the greatest fighter ever.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, everybody in the Nana circle calls him that. I mean, even Rocky essentially calls him that.
True. Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, Ray, do you recall off the top of your head if they had mentioned Ali in the first run of Rocky films? Because I just cannot remember.
No. I mean, the only icon I remember them bringing up was Joe Frazier in the first one. And he actually showed up in the ring, but no.
That's right.
Yeah, but not until he mentioned Ali that it kind of clicked. I was like, yeah, he has that brash vibe. So Apollo was kind of like, the next coming of Ali, so to speak. So it made, I understand why I brought it up.
I mean, you kind of can't have Ali and Creed in the same universe. It kind of doesn't make a lot of sense, really. I don't know. Maybe I'm reading too much into it.
Well, once you bring ESPN into the universe and you make HBO and all of these things canon, it's hard to shy away from real athletes like Ali.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah. I think a lot of good was done in this movie. I think it's a great part. Well, I can't say it's a great film. I can't say it's my favorite film of all time, but I also cannot say it's a bad movie. Again, I thoroughly enjoyed this, but I'm also not a 20-something guy who's a Michael B. Jordan fan who appreciates the Rocky stuff but doesn't really want to be connected to it too awful much. So maybe my opinion would change. But I guess because I'm old school and I'm an older fan, that I grew up with those movies, so I've got a connection there, and I love Jordan. So I can kind of get the best of both worlds. But again, maybe someone younger than me would say, Tom, you're crazy. This film didn't work because, God, we're doing all Rocky. Let's move on. I don't know. Maybe there's some validity to that argument, but for me, I think this is a fitting part 2. I mean, if again, we talked to, when we kick this thing off today about how would we have done it differently? I don't know if any of us got any great ideas, but again, to me, I think this is a fitting part 2. I just don't see a whole lot of problem with it here at all, man.
Yeah, I mean, for all of the stuff, you could argue that there's a lot of retread to Rocky 4 here. I do think that this was a good way to send off Rocky, because Rocky doesn't have much of a presence in the third movie. And I love that they did so much here to kind of wrap up that side of Rocky's life and his relationship with Donnie. Because I think it's so well done when he's in a locker room at the beginning and he's getting ready to go out. He's got his gloves on, and we don't see Rocky. We just hear his voice. Chills. Good.
Yeah.
And so I also, at the end of the fight, when he beats Drago and he goes to the corner to help Rocky in the ring and fist bump him, and Rocky's like, "No, it's your time. It's your moment." And he sits down, and we get that shot of Rocky from behind watching Adonis move on. And that was kind of the point. I feel like that was kind of the point of this movie.
Yeah.
Like this was their last big fight together.
Yeah.
And
That
it
was
was almost
good.
like
I liked
Rocky
it.
saying, "You don't need me anymore. You're good.
Yeah.
Like I've done my job."
Yeah. Mm. Well, I'm sure we mentioned this in part one. In a world in which we're talking about how can we bring a franchise back? How can we young it up? How can we introduce, well, these are the sons of the Ghostbusters or whatever you want to do? Like, how can this franchise found a way to do it and it's not hokey and it works? And like, you can still connect to the past, but you can definitely connect to the future. And you don't have to go the route of the traditional Rocky, but you can. You
Yeah.
can do whatever you want. Like the freedom here. Like, you got to keep the same sort of tone. I get it, but you can just do so many different things. Like, man, I don't know. Coogler cracked the code with that first movie. And I thought for him to not have directed this one, yeah, he was missed in several moments, I think, key moments. But at the same time, they didn't do too awful bad based on business for sure.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, like I said, the fight itself, the last fight, I think it worked very well. I love the outcome of it. Um, Drago throwing the towel in, great touch.
The, talking about on the nose, was that too much? Do you think Victor was hurt enough that he had to do that?
100%.
Mm.
And
I
he did the right thing. It was for his son.
Yeah, I think throwing the towel in was a great callback. I think it could have felt too on the nose, but I think it worked with the story they were telling.
I agree with that. So, of the two movies, we've got number two's almost in the can here, guys. Of the two movies, what's been your favorite Adonis Creed fight so far? What do you think, Ray? Put you on the spot.
Wow. Honestly, it's when he was fighting the last fight and he lost his car. I love the dynamics of that. He just came into the ring with this brash guy, and he beat the first three guys. And he fights Andre Ward, and he's like, "You bit off a little more than you could chew."
Hmm.
And the Andre Ward's like, "Give me those keys."
Yeah, there's a lot of fights here, man. Dude, I really enjoyed that because I think that was the first opportunity we got to really lay eyes on Adonis and figure out, oh, I think I know this guy. I think I know him. He's going to make bad decisions. He's brash. He's a hothead. But again, that's not to to dehumanize this guy. He's young. He's hungry. Of course, he's gonna have some amount of swagger to him. But I thought that was a very cool moment actually. Not losing the Mustang. No one should have to lose a Mustang. You kidding me?
Yeah,
But Phil, what do you think? Do you have a favorite so far of the two movies?
it might be the final fight from the first movie.
Mm.
I do like in this movie that we get the reverse. We get the reverse of Rocky 3, where Rocky is a fighter that takes a lot of punishment in every movie, because he's not as athletic as Ali. I mean, or I'm falling for it. He's not as athletic as Apollo, and so I love he has to teach Adonis the opposite, because Adonis is more athletic than him. He's quicker than him.
Mm.
He's more technically sound than him as a fighter, and so he has to teach him to take punishment.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fair. I like that.
Because I mean, a lot of their training in the desert is teaching him how to bulk up and to take a lot of like the low blows that he knew that Drago was going to take,
Mm.
preparing for those and strengthening his core so that he could stand toe to toe with him.
Yeah.
That drill that they did with the tire, so that he could stand toe to toe with him, literally.
Mm.
I thought that all worked very well, because that's not his fighting style. His whole fighting style is to keep moving and to get away, like his dad's.
Yeah, good call. Yeah. Yeah, because Rocky flat out tells him, like, essentially, if I'm going to train you for this, you can't do what you've always done. It's not going to work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, you can't fight like your dad because your dad lost.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No kidding. Yeah, that's good. Yeah. Well, kids, we're almost done with the trilogy here, folks. And we've got the first two Creed movies in the can here. And we've got one more to go. And once we do that, we've got the trilogy. Sometimes we complete things here. So, yeah, look, we're fans of the Rocky verse. Again, if I had to make a choice, if someone said, "Hey, what Tom, what do you think?" Much rather the Creed movies exist than not exist. I can't say enough good things about Coogler and how he made this happen. He and Jordan together made this happen and put this thing on the map in a big bad way. Nothing but love for those guys. I love this universe a lot. And man, maybe at the end of the day, Ray, for guys who are a little bit older, like there's just something so familiar about this that unless you just screw it up royally, and I'm looking at you, Rocky 5, unless you just screw it up royally, man, the long term, the long standing fans are going to keep coming back to this universe and enjoy it.
100%. Because there's a piece of that movie that has something for everybody. Like I said, it has the whole Rocky trilogy. Now Creed has become his own identity, his own person. So people are gravitating towards him now. And he's established himself as his own character, that he's not, a Rocky clone, that he's identified himself as a different type of boxer, different type of person. He's fighting for different purposes and different goals. So it just makes this movie and this series just different. Not necessarily better, but different in a way where you could, get multiple audiences and multiple fans to try to, gravitate towards it.
Yeah. A little something here for everybody, kids. Again, if you're a longtime fan, you're happy. If you're a newer fan, you're happy. And I think what we're all trying to say is next time your little baby girl's crying, take her to a gym and hit the heavy bag and see what happens. Because, evidently it doesn't hurt too much. I thought they'd get a laugh, but it's okay. I'll let it sit there and stew.
If I would have gotten in the hospital, I would have done it. No one told me that in the hospital. And the nurse, the doctors, no one said that to me.
No one ever said, "Tom, I got an idea for you there, buddy. Take her to a boxing gym."
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's crying her brains out and you can't get her to stop. Just start hitting the heavy bag a couple times.
When all else fails. Yeah. Well, kids, there you have it. There's Creed 2. Done and done. But before we go, Phil, let's get your last word on Creed 2.
I think that this is a poignant, very heartfelt movie in a lot of ways. I think it has a lot of what worked in the first movie. It's not as quite as good as the first movie, in my opinion, but still very much worth a watch.
Yeah, I agree. Ray, what do you think?
Yeah, very, very good movie. I definitely would recommend it. Doesn't have some of the oomph as the first one, but it had some very, interesting dynamics. Brings in, the daughter, so it's a new character to the movie, which obviously grows when you get to the third one. So I did like it for those different reasons.
Yeah, again, I'm a fan of this movie. I enjoyed it. Can't wait to cover part 3. Parts 1 and 2 have been fun. Kids, stay on the lookout. Keep your eyes open. I don't really have a last word other than I enjoyed this movie. And yeah, there's some heavy lifting issues that happen here and there, but did they juggle the balls and keep spinning the plates as much as they could without Coogler? Yeah, I would think so.
Yeah.
But hindsight's 20/20. We still got part 3 to go, folks. And some wrongs shall be righted when we cover part 3. And we'll get there, just hold on. But for now, that is Creed 2.
Hey, thanks for listening to the show. Check out our social media on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at 6M Podcast. We'll see you next time.